And I feel a real hunger for that. And so, in a sense, it's a work in progress. It is, as you noted, it's kind of figuring it out, because I think that's the way we really make things that are really interesting. Is we don't come in and say, well, this is what it's going to be. It's like, okay, I understand this part, and then maybe I understand this part, and then I go away and I can't see this, but maybe somebody else can see. So that they, without embarrassing them, the generosity of spirit and the willingness to risk is greatly appreciated. But maybe I should. What's that?
We'll embarrass ourselves.
Yeah, and I should also say, and David Tate, who was part of the original group and has been invincible and very valuable in helping me pull this once together all together. I think I'll start, since we're starting anyway.
Yeah.
But let me just take a moment and say welcome to all of you. There'll be more chairs coming in, I hope. And welcome to the first of this season's Fire in the Library. My name is Eugenia Butler. I teach here at SCI-Arc. I'm a visual artist, and the series is an attempt to ask to put really wonderful people together who we wouldn't normally meet in our everyday course of life, and who may not meet each other in their everyday course of life, and try to have a really informed, interesting, valuable conversation that you are also a part of, and my class is also a part of. We'll start as we've started. We'll start talking, and I invite you to ask questions or to also become a part of the dialogue. I'm wondering if we should find Louise and make sure that we've got extra chairs coming in. Do you mind, Ruben?
No.
Okay, thanks. So let me start by introducing my guests. To my left is John Hughes, and John is the president and CEO of Rhythm & Hughes, which is a computer animation company. Is that a good way to say it? Who I think is well known for making the Coke penguins.
The Coca-Cola polar bears.
Polar bears, okay. No wonder people have been looking at me blank when I said the Coke penguins. And Babe, yes, among many other things.
Animation for Babe.
Animation for Babe. And I'm going to ask you a little, I'll talk a little bit more about you, but let's just do David Tate. David is an experimental psychologist, is that the right way to say this?
I'm a psychotherapist.
A psychotherapist, okay.
Yeah, with an interest,
okay.
Personal interest in consciousness and issues of matter, mind.
And you worked or studied with Gregory Bateson, is that true?
Yeah, I more absorbed him like a sponge.
Okay.
I can't say I worked with him, I just hung.
Okay. What a lucky thing to do.
Yeah,
Yes. And Eric Durst. And Eric is a motion picture director and visual effects designer, is that right?
I'm a director and visual effects director as well.
Okay, and you've directed commercials.
A lot of commercials and visual effects for movies.
Okay, and we'll go through this a couple of times, so kind of getting to know each other and letting all of you get to know us. I thought it might be a good idea, first of all, to show, because we're so visual, and in a sense this whole discussion is about how the visual impacts us. So I thought we'd start by just seeing a couple of short clips of your work and of is it your work or your company's work?
Company's work.
Yeah. So, except that I sent away the man who knows how to do it.
We're not going to see your latest documentary? In progress?
It's in online right now.
Maybe in an hour it'll be done.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do while we wait for Ruben to get back. I will just introduce you all a little bit more. I mean, John, what I know about you is, or I guess the thing that really interests me about you the most is that you have a company that in an incredibly competitive industry, it seems to be constructed in almost a socialist manner. And we're getting more chairs. So, yeah? Okay, good. And that really interests me. I also, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Well,
Go ahead.
we live in a capitalist society, so we don't have any choice. We have to be capitalists.
Yeah. But the way, well, it's going to be hard to, hello.
Why don't we wait a couple minutes? while
Okay,
people-
okay.
Or they could sit in the chairs that are already available.
That's true, that's true, that's true, that's true. Hello. Okay, and so what I also know about you is you were born in the Midwest, is that correct?
Born in Minnesota.
Northern Minnesota, went to the University of Minnesota,
That's right.
received training as an engineer.
Absolutely.
Your first job was at the Walker Art Institute, is media, audio, visual,
Just a technician.
a technician.
Slideshows,
Okay,
lights,
okay, okay. And what I know about you, Eric, is that you grew up in Arkansas, is that right?
Right.
And your father, one of the things that really interested me about what you told me was that your father was the head of the art department, is that correct? At
Right,
University
yeah.
of Arkansas. And that he was the first man to,
Well, they made the first, this was in the 50s, but they made the first art center.
and we're going to have to speak out a little bit so
Okay,
we
they made
can
the
hear it.
first art center that was one building that housed all the arts. And at that point in the period of university academics, there were not a lot of creative art degrees that you could get. And so anyway, he started this department and actually built this building, or had this building built that had, you know, dance and architecture and art and things, sort of like a CalArts type of situation.
So one of the first interdisciplinary.
Right, because they're all
arts
related
centers.
together.
Okay,
So
and then
that's
you
sort of
went.
what I
Then
grew
you
up
went on and went to. That was one of the early students at CalArts here in
Right.
California, right?
Right.
And then you went off to New York. Is that right?
I got an animation degree.
Okay. Okay.
In experimental animation.
Okay, and that's right. And you studied with Jules.
With Jules
Engel. And tell us who Jules Engel is, because I was very interested in that, and
Well,
I didn't know. I didn't know.
Jules, you know Jules. I mean, Jules is a mentor, and they have mentor programs at CalArts, and he's been a mentor to many an animator. I'm sure people in your company have worked with Jules, and he was a real inspiration in terms of animating in not traditional ways, but in ways that could see anything as a potential animation tool. Pieces of paper, microphones, pencils, hand drawing, anything. So that was all in the main category of experimental animation. So I did a lot of work that was just all drawn animation, and then a lot of cutout work and so forth. And so Jules was one of my inspirations, and he's done been the mentor of like John Lasseter, I guess, and Tim Burton, and some famous people in the field.
And then did you both work at A1 Associates at the same time?
I did not work at Mobius.
I thought you
No, I
did.
didn't.
Sorry.
No, I was in New York actually at that time.
Okay. And you had a company doing.
I did documentaries, and I did a lot of experimental animation on my own, and worked for Children's Television Workshop, where a lot of, in the 70s and early 80s, a lot of experimental animators really got their bread by working for Children's Television Workshop, which was Sesame Street and all its offshoots, because you were able to take the concept of 1, 2, 3 or ABC or whatever it is and just make a film. So it was, a lot of people were supported by that funding, and I was one.
Okay, well, good. And now we'll go further. But so now you're back in Los Angeles. You're back in Los Angeles. You've been here. Do you have your own company, or?
I have my own company, and then I also do commercials through a commercial production
Oh,
company.
okay. And now I'll bet we could, Ruben, can we see 2 clips? I didn't know exactly, what do we just put them in there? Is that all it is? Yeah, here. Hello. Okay, so we'll see, to give everybody some visuals. Let's see. Okay. Embarrassing. No,
What's that? I think this is just normal. Is that
oh,
John?
and I didn't ask you anything about yourself, David. I'm sorry. Before I do this.
I thought I was getting off easy. I was trying to think of one thing that gave coherence or cohesion to my life experience, which has gone from everything from being a musician, songwriter, to psychotherapist, to video producer. And the one thing is developing a sense of hunger and cultivating a sense of wonder. And at first it's kind of an exercise in staying titillated, but more now as an exercise in staying sane. And there's some things that have been occurring around me that give just incredible meaning to the 5 years that I spent developing psychotherapeutic skills and working with schizophrenics and working at the edges of madness, and then coming back to my creativity and saying, I'm crazy, and it's okay. Why is it okay that I'm crazy as compared to my clients that I was working with in board and cares, that it wasn't okay that they were crazy. So I'm experiencing some really wonderful things that in my childhood I was both excited and afraid to find out about. And I'm right in the middle right now of doing a project that I'll, if we have a chance, I can tell you about.
Absolutely, yeah.
With JPL, the mission to Mars, the team that put the rover on Mars, and that she's still trucking right now. So I've learned a lot about that, and had a great conversation with John yesterday about good science and solid engineering and what that has to do with creativity. And so that would be both what I'm experiencing and what I hope to spend some time talking about tonight.
Good. Well, actually, that might be a really nice place to start up.
Okay.
We'll see some images, and let's just kind of go into that.
Yeah.
And can everybody hear? Are you hearing okay? Should we close the doors? It's okay? Okay, good.
What are the microphones for exactly?
The microphones are for the video machine.
Oh.
Okay. Really, what do I do here? Is it in this one?
Put it in there.
It doesn't want to go in.
There might be a tape in there. Is there eject?
To eject?
Oh, okay. Oh, there is. Okay, there's one in there. Okay.
Don't you hope it's one of ours?
I think it is. So let's hit play. Okay.
Push play would be
Okay, so this is John Hughes. This is Elizabeth Hughes. And John, how long is this left, do you know?
Probably about 5 minutes.
Okay. And how do we turn that
Yeah, a
on?
little more volume.
up on the monitor. It'd be up on the monitor.
That's a common misconception about raccoons.
dogs. We carry the bloodline of ancient Bahu. We stand for something. Today I watched shame as all I was betrayed.
Should have brought something.
We should have somebody from JPL.
Yeah, I should. Basically, actually, it's interesting because there's some similarities of our work in that there's the opening is Batman, of which you did a lot of the sequences, and I was involved in I did the motion control photography for the city of Gotham in the last two Batman.
Okay.
And so this first sequence is are sections of that, and then there's some commercials which are just a totally different look, so I can introduce those at that point.
Okay, go ahead. One thing.
Tracking is, oh, I see, fine.
This is not my expertise.
The rest are commercials, which are sort of take visual effects to a different,
Okay.
more of a design, conceptual
And is the animation that's like the thing moving around, the carpet cleaner moving around?
So much do that gets out even the toughest requests. And music. The new Surge Express line from Black & Decker.
How can these versions of the dictionary be? Let's start know, the dry dog food that spills out of Rover's dish. Cemetery, the bug graveyard under Wisconsin. Espresso Masso, the coffee grinds you spilled on the kitchen floor. Dustbuster, that which is lightweight, cordless, and cleans up dirt fast and easy.
Do you design all of this? Do you design all of this, the whole conception and everything?
Well, that's part of the ad agency. We can talk about agency and production. The next series is
Use color to attract other birds. Fish use color to attract other fish. Shouldn't businesses use color to attract more business? Get bright colors with Amarillo, the paper that works.
First of all, I want to apologize for keeping you all waiting. I had some problem with the coffee. He just kept jamming. I couldn't fix it.
Problem with paper jams?
Tried to fix it and then jammed again.
Get Amarillo, the paper that works. This is the brain of a person looking at a pie chart. This is the same brain looking at a pie chart on Amarillo paper. Get bright colors with Amarillo, the paper that works.
The Polaroid one-step flash. Now under $30. The Polaroid one-step flash with the new close-up lens. Now under 30 buckaroos.
Most checking accounts only let me write checks. But when you open a Wachovia Crown account, you also need to withdraw up to $500 a day from ATMs and get a Visa or MasterCard with no annual fee. Plus a safe place to lock things up. Reduced rates on installment loan. Free traveler's checks and 5 other free services. The Crown account, only from Wachovia. There's a lot more inside than just checks.
There's never been anything like it. The healthcare crisis has brought forth a stream of reform plans, none of which has offered a truly workable solution. But now, there's a new proposal from the people most qualified to make one. The people who serve nearly 100 million Americans. The Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. To learn our ideas, call this number. Because we believe it's the one plan that can make the system healthy again.
Take your average family trip, but take it in a not-so-average family car, the new Volkswagen Passat. The Passat wagon comes with 4-wheel disc brakes. It's got plenty of room for your family. And best of all, Parker knew, which means you might even forget you're driving a family car.
Are we there yet?
Well, maybe not. Parker knew is what makes a car, a Volkswagen. Nice logo, too.
That seems really connected to hand animation in some way. I don't know if it is.
Yeah, a lot of it was.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of differences too between what the two of you do. It's
Well, and their connections too.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of it, like in Batman, a lot of the miniature photography would go so far, and then there was computer extensions that went beyond that. So it was a real bridge and blend between real things, let's say, and computer synthetic imagery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really the nature of where we are now is that. I mean, it's having real things which are manipulated and then extended in the computer, and it's really sort of where the line is. You know, you don't know. I mean, it depends on what the best technique is. So I think you could speak, legions about that in terms of just
I know. I watch your video, and I'm wondering, is that CG? Is that a model?
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it is hard to tell.
What is CG, John?
Computer graphics, digital imagery. So I look at that, and I presume in the Batman, most of the sculptures were miniature.
Yeah, almost most of it was. There were, I think, 3 or 4 city extension shots where you're looking really straight down. The rest was miniature.
But the helicopter?
Helicopter was miniature.
Oh, really?
But in the shots where you have the Batmobile go by and there's Robin on the motorbike is CG. And the car is like a quarter scale miniature. So, but you really can't tell. So it really depends. It's easier, and the reason is because when you had a Batmobile, it has 4 wheels, and it's easy to drive remote control, but it would be very difficult to do that with a 2-wheeled motorcycle. So you sort of look at what's possible and what isn't possible, and the blend between, and it becomes a money issue also. It gets complex.
Yeah, I mean, there's
the production part of it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much visual imagery that just went by us. It's like, I'm wondering, do you guys see something different? Well, do you guys see something different than I see? I don't know. You know, I just get dizzy with it. I mean, at a certain point, it gets really hard for me to make any sense. It just becomes, it's like, one of the things that I noticed between the two is and this could be just happenstance, but that it was almost like being in a brain, seeing your what do you call that tape? Your tape. I mean, it was like there were so many images, so many different, that it was almost like being inside your own brain, where all of the thoughts are going on and all of these possibilities are going on. And part of the challenge is almost, okay, where do I go? It's like schizophrenia in a sense. And on the other hand, I see story.
Well, I think it's the way in which you market different
I mean,
things.
this is essentially a marketing tool, and we market usually to advertising agencies, and although these people are paid a lot of money to be creative, when they generate a new ad, typically they want to see it already. So,
Really?
for marketing purposes, we want to show them as many different images as we possibly can, because the advertising community is a community that copies what someone else has done. So they want to see it. They're not going to hire us unless they see what it is they want to do already on our reel.
Do they, when somebody in the advertising world sees your reel, do they perceive almost all of those images, do you think? Or is
Yes, of course, as we do, because we're in the business.
So it's not it's not like a wash of images to you. It's a different kind of seeing.
Well, we see these images so much that for us, 1/24th of a second is quite clear to most of us in the field.
I mean, that's really interesting to me from a couple of different aspects. How do you see that? Because you're kind of inside of it and outside of it, David. I mean, do you see?
Yeah, he does too.
My first reaction is, I immediately would love to know collectively what everybody's favorite images or least favorite images were and what was happening to you guys. Because I know it was happening to me. That's my curiosity.
Yeah, well,
that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
You guys make this amazing mind candy or mind nutrition or mind toxin or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
To me, there's a lot of all of those in there. And I immediately want to know, because I got my reactions, what everybody's reactions are.
Well, why don't you talk about your reactions and then let's get some reactions. Yeah, because I think it'll be really interesting.
Well, part of my work has been to go back to my childhood when I think I was authentically alive.
When you think you were what?
Authentically alive.
Do you not think you're authentically alive now?
I'm getting back there.
Okay.
I'm really having a pretty good time recently, actually. And some of the people that taught me how to do that were really great artists that I had a chance to hang around with, and visionaries, and just as great crazy folks.
When you were a child?
Since. Helped me getting back to what I realized was a more authentic state for me. I've identified it as an authentic state. It's part of my healing process as an artist and as a human being. And Gregory Bateson was a big part of that. He taught me that it was okay to be a generalist and to gather all these wonderful things and put them together. Well, which is a lot of what's happening here. Anything seems to be okay. You get any kind of sensorial experience, tactile thing, and if you can get a whoosh out of a computer graphic image, they're going to sell some Coca-Cola or whatever, and you're also going to give somebody sitting there watching a jolt. So my experience, I'll pick one thing out of all that I was watching for something that was pretty sensorially concrete, if there's such a thing. And the polar bear going down the ramp for me. That was a good thing to focus on and say. And Batman and Robin too. You had some moves where they were. I got it. I got the gut thing. The butterfly. Whoa.
How did you connect with it? Did you connect with it emotionally, physically? Really?
Yeah,
really?
I felt it in my stomach. It was physical, and then that fed back to here, and then I was very pleased because I was sitting in a chair and I was getting to go down a ski run for what was it, a half a second or whatever it was. That's pretty great. And I don't know whether now is the appropriate time or later.
Sure, absolutely.
But
right
what
now.
I would love to address is what has been haunting me from my authentic period. 2 years old, 3 years old, on the floor, getting things to be bigger than my head by putting them like this and looking up at them and saying, "It's huge." And and then now you guys are allowing us to do that, or me to do things that are incredible things. Like I know that in some world, polar bears ski. Damn straight. They're, you see them in the zoo. They do anything else they can. So let's let them. Let's create a world where they can ski. And so, the interesting thing is that I've been waiting all of my young adult life to get back to that place where it was okay to take the things and pretend, and then let my mind and spirit race with them. Like the greats. Like a Michelangelo could take a big block of stone, and everybody says, "Oh, please don't ask me to carry that up the hill." He says, "I'm going to ask you to carry that up the hill because David's in there." And because that magic is there. And I'm seeing the tools, and I'm hoping against hope that an era that I prayed for it personally is finally going to come. And I call that windows, where the mind windows are successfully starting to open. The tools are coming so fast that our senses are being fooled fast enough, and our most wonderful mental and intellectual constructions are able to finally have the sensorial and gut fooling tools to create worlds, to create windows.
I think some of probably the most impressive worlds weren't able to be seen in this format, right? The ones where you had the three images, which were
Can I ask you to? I'm going to ask you to project a little bit.
Louder, okay. The images where you had the 3 panels.
Right, that was really for Orlando, for a Disney theme park in Orlando, where there are 3 70mm projectors. So it's a very, very widescreen experience. So we just try to simulate it on our tiny little television monitor.
But you'd be able to look around and really see.
It's about 180 degrees experience,
right? And that's the most beautiful.
Right. So in this format, the format we just showed it in is not very visceral at all.
Right.
I mean, we're just trying to show the people that are going to hire us all the different things we've done. The real visceral experience is when you see the entire project. So it's hard to get that experience out of something so fast, so quick.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, I would be real interested to see what other people in the room kind of experience with this. I mean, I get both mesmerized and fascinated, but I'm also always like, I'm pushing against it. I mean, it's like it's so. I mean, it seems so seductive to me that I'm really suspicious. I don't want to be pulled in unless there's going to be more than candy at the other end, kind of. Well, but it's interesting because in a sense, I mean, what David was talking about was, kind of the recreating this childhood. I mean, in this childhood world, and in a way, we do that. You do that. I say we, being our time, does that.
There's one. I can tell you where I was trying to go with that, with my childhood experience. I hadn't yet been taught that I couldn't manipulate reality. That came through school and a lot of hard knocks, like standing on top of the fence and losing track of that I was on a fence and almost breaking my arm. But that I haven't been taught that wasn't reality, or what these guys aren't doing isn't reality. And so what I'm excited about and also scared, and especially having worked with the schizophrenics that I was working with in Board and Cares in Ventura and Santa Barbara, was that I still have some of that kind of thing going, but if it's let out of control, and if you have an extreme enough reason, like maybe brain chemistry gone bad, or or a whole series of situations, then once that grid, the reality grid that we hold over the experiences that we have, slips just a little bit, it goes out of registration. Getting back is a bitch, or can be, and so that's why I'm both excited and also nervous about this. I'm first of all nervous for the clients that I had. Because you guys are getting better and better. I mean, it's getting better and better. And to sit in a room with folks that are talking to the other while they're trying to focus on this, and then, did they see a polar bear go down a ski run or not? I feel like I saw one go down it. So, and there's a whole, I could go off on that.
Keep going. Yeah, Edgar, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to me because, I mean, these guys, you guys are doing this stuff with special effects and everything. I mean, I wonder just how real it can really get. You know what I mean? I mean, is there like an ultimate level of reality? I mean, when Jurassic Park came out, I mean, that was just like amazing that they could make dinosaurs feel and look that real, right? And then you have this gentleman here who's David here who's working on a project with, that's bringing back pictures of Mars. And then that's interesting. And I think about when I went to Carlsbad Caverns, and I was walking through the caverns, and I didn't feel anything because Disneyland did so much of a better job recreating Carlsbad Caverns. They even had music there, and bats and pirates in there. You know what I mean? So, I think about, the special effects in relation to, these pictures that are coming back in Mars, come back from Mars, and then you're like, well, how much of a reality is that in relationship to the reality that these guys are creating here? You know what I mean? Like, which one is more real? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm articulating exactly what I mean, but...
Sure.
Do you think that it's valuable that you can hang on to both the reality and the fantasy? Because what makes the fantasy so wondrous is because you've got that reference. Because it's not saying you have to choose one or the other. You're kind of saying, it seems like, well, we've got to choose reality, otherwise I'll slip off the edge of,
Oh, that's nice.
be classified as. But, if you can actually sit in between and recognize, yes, you have to function in the everyday world, but you have to be able to believe in, polar bears or whatever it is. But it makes it wondrous because you do deal with the everyday world. You do recognize certain limitations that allow you to live in society. So I think it's kind of accepting both of them, not choosing.
I think that's why I have a sense that I've lost something as an adult, that I was never threatened about it as a child. I think that's why, to get to the place that you're describing where I can slip in and out and it's not an issue, amounts to remembering. Or having to reconstruct something that was damaged by a reductive education process or a certain kind of conditioning. Hey, wake up, you dreamer. That's not real, and that's not going to get you a job. And the assaults of adolescence.
There's a need to hold it in abeyance for a while. It seems like to hold reality in abeyance, but only experience can get us to that point. I think that we couldn't enjoy the videos if we didn't have this background experience. I don't know what I would enjoy if I were a 2-year-old looking at that. I don't think it would have any meaning to me.
Yes, that's a really good point. So in other words, that because we're firmly enmeshed in the real world and struggling with the world, that there's almost this we're able to, in a sense, go away for a moment. Was that what you're saying?
Yeah, and maybe the schizophrenic doesn't have the ability to hold this in abeyance, to hold his reality in abeyance and look at the world differently. And we have that ability to do that, and that's the magic of it. That's the joyousness of it.
That's really interesting, though, because what I think of when you say that is I go to like a really early primary experience with a work of art, like being in LA County Museum at age 11, seeing an Ad Reinhardt, and all of a sudden realizing that I could go away, that there was something else that made sense in a way that to this moment I can't still describe. But it feels like the same activity that you described with this, and yet there's a place where I really resist this. There's a place where I don't know, because it's commercial, whether that's some kind of a cultural byproduct of growing up in Berkeley in the late '60s, and whether that's a resistance, or whether it's whether the place that offers is ultimately a place that can't give as much. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have any kind of, I don't even know if what I'm saying is clear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then I wonder, last night I heard the Lincoln Center performance in court when Missouri was talking, and in between, and he talked, he apparently was very shy as a young boy, and somehow found he had an ability to express himself through piano. And I have no idea how that comes about in us. How do we find our method of expression? What is it in us that brings that about? And to me, your sense of meeting that art, piece of art, somehow was your way of expressing.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Maybe it's meeting myself.
Yeah,
maybe
and then it shouldn't be lost. I mean, then it should be hung on to dearly.
Yeah. So maybe there's not necessarily a qualitative difference. I mean, when yeah, that's actually really interesting. That's a really interesting place to put it. I mean, I want it to be. I want that place that you guys are creating to somehow really be marvelous and be able to be this other world. And I guess that my prejudice is that it seems to be so driven by the need to sell things.
Well, it is in commercials because that's what they are.
Yeah, but even in the movie, I mean, it seems like even...
Well, in the movie, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
It's the biggest commercial you'll ever get.
Yeah, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And that's, that's something you have to work with as an artist. When you're working on something, you have to get into... What I find is I get into sort of narrow bandwidths. I get into a shot, an aspect of a shot, an aspect of the aspect of a shot. You can get very narrow into it and sort of lose the sight of the whole production. In commercials, and the reason I sort of like doing commercials, or I do like doing commercials, because they're 30 seconds and they're a challenge, because you have a product and you have to say something, you have to create sort of a visual icon about that product, a story like the Sharpay.
Which is very demanding and not easy to do.
And you have to do it in a very quick amount of time. You don't have 2 hours, you don't have an unlimited amount of time, you have these limits. And so there's a real challenge in commercials to have a concept, be able to communicate it very effectively, and then you're out. So I look at it on that level.
But then at the same time, you are creating images which I would call kind of mnemonic images. Like I think about the tree, the last commercial, where the tree and all the birds fly away, and I mean that has the capacity. I mean it has an intensity, a visual aesthetic intensity that's a real experience. I mean it's a real powerful visual experience. So maybe it's not fair for me to dismiss it. And maybe that's not even the issue, and maybe I'm clouding things by thinking about them in these ways. I don't know. You're nodding your head. You think I am? Huh? Oh, okay, good. And what do other people think? What were some of the other reactions to seeing the tapes? Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind is that because they're doing commercials, because they're working on movies, they have to apply to computer graphics in a sense where they have to become photorealistic. They have to do color, trees and things that you recognize. But you should keep in mind that the medium of computer graphics, for the medium of computer graphics, reality is just a special case.
Well, no. What said? I want to really understand what you. Reality is just a special case.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
In other words, out of the myriads of worlds that they can create, the worlds that they're creating for the commercials and movies, which is very close to reality, is just one. And the reason that they have to do this is because we're living in a capitalistic world. That's where the money is, and that's what they have to do. But there's so many more other possibilities of creating universes that don't obey the laws.
Well, I mean, it's sure.
And that's where I think the real art can come
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I get getting excited.
We don't see much of that these days. I think we saw a lot of it in the early days of computer graphics. Bob Abel not being here, you know, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have, for anybody who didn't know that, Bob canceled about 5 days ago, so if you were expecting him, my apologies, this is better, I hope.
Yeah. Not that to say what they're doing these days isn't art, it's very beautiful, but you have to realize that it has to be constrained because of the limitations of the industry they're working in. So
Of course, but this is kind of an opportunity to play, you know, outside of the constraints, or at least to look at, sort of philosophically, to look at the you know, in a kind of a communal setting, in a community setting.
Yeah.
I mean,
the neat thing is that these days, because computers are so cheap and the software is getting really out there in the hands of people, you no longer need to be, you know, a part of a huge company or have access to huge multi-billion-dollar computers to work on stuff you like. So people can create really interesting, beautiful worlds that would probably never make a cent in the real world, but just, you know, they created in an artistic sense. It's really fun.
and you know, and one of the things that I keep thinking of when you're talking, which is really interesting, is that almost, I mean, David, you talked about this as well in another way. It's like one of the common kind of fantasies of our century is the whole idea of the alternative realities. I mean, John Louis Borges talked about it in the, you know, the alpha spot, and the whole idea of these worlds that could be these multiple worlds. And you're talking about it too. I mean, and I think it's a common fantasy that we all hold, or a curiosity, or a desire, or you know, it's like the tectonic plates of our.
Well, it basically comes back to, I think, the realization that we all want to be God in our own sense. And when you have a tool like this, you can create your world, set up whoever you want in it, make them do whatever you want. It's kind of fun.
But see, to me, the interesting question is, how do you? I mean, is it possible to be inside, to have a relationship with this tool that we're doing the driving as well? You know, that it's not, because to me it seems so incredibly powerful. John, when we were talking on the phone the other day, you talked about yourself as making images. And I was riding my bicycle this morning, and I was thinking about this making your images, but these images they're images that exist in the culture, or your images, that they exist in the cultural mind, but you're also making tools. You're by the need to make those images. When you talk about going from hand animation to computer animation, suddenly these images are tools that are kind of racing across the cultural brain in this very powerful, changing way. It's changing. These tools and these images are affecting us and changing us. And how do we get inside these tools in a way that or is it possible, that is okay, yes, we need to sell things to each other, but we also need to have a world where those tools are not just exclusively for that somehow, it seems to me. That we can't have a society that is just only about exchange. And how do we, you maybe not, I mean, maybe you disagree. I would be happy for you to disagree, but it just seems to me that how do we get inside, is it possible to?
I don't think, I mean, I think what you were saying about the tools availability, I think are the exact opposite. Actually, by developing tools.
Okay, good point.
In a studio, you have like, you know, like Poser there were some guys at your studio that developed Poser. And that is something that everybody can buy for like $99 or something, and you can manipulate mannequins and things like that. And so by actually having commercial uses or reasons to develop these tools and all the other, you know, 3D tools and 2D tools, they've become available for everybody. So
right, there's a democratization of the tool, but when you look at what we're doing there, that's not democratic. When you look at what we're doing, that's $1 million to $1.5 million per minute. It's very expensive to do that kind of work. It's not a tool that in the hand of your average user you're going to turn that out. It's not. You don't have to be in any danger of the tool taking control of the person. This is very, very difficult to do.
To me, there's a
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, we're gonna do that,
It's like I hear another question lurking under the surface.
What's the
Or
question?
at least for me. Why are two, as far as I'm concerned, two of the most talented imagists, or whatever the word, working as the spearheads with the most talented teams of visual artists that I know of, getting paid $1.5 million a minute to do this? What the heck is going on? Why is it worth it?
We aren't personally, by the way. Why it worked like that?
That's what the team gets, absolutely, and it's because we're in a capitalistic society.
But why?
What's the word?
Why do people want this so much? Because the proof is, I mean, I feel like, where's the
value?
You guys, why are we?
What's missing in reality?
Well, because they can't do it.
Ooh,
for
good
themselves.
question.
Because they what?
They can't do it for themselves, so it becomes very attractive. Someone's
You,
doing it for you.
Can you do it for yourself?
Yeah, sure, I can do it for myself. I'm not talking about with this particular tool,
Yeah.
but I think as an artist, a practitioner always can do that for themselves. You create worlds all the time where you respond to the real world. The thing I kept thinking while I was watching is, these are fantastic, no doubt, as images, but I kept looking for content. I kept looking for content.
But there's no content. We're not paid to create content.
No, I understand that, but for me,
content.
visual images trigger the desire for content. It's just part of being an artist, I think.
And maybe part of being a human, because I mean, it's like the desire for story. I mean, content is story, it's connection.
Or narrative,
maybe.
I mean, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't have to be that heavy. But I kept thinking to myself, I was thinking about Mars, because on my computer I have a bookmark that goes to a JPEG of a panorama. So I just kind of check in once a month, look at this panorama. That to me is more fantastic, the idea that that exists in real life. That's more fantastic. I mean, I haven't been there, so I don't know if it really exists
And you know
in real
what,
life.
getting back to this question, I haven't actually seen these images. We've got some people from JPL here that have seen the images, but I haven't seen them. But I would bet that we could create something more real in the computer than those images that have come back from
No
Mars.
doubt.
And yet we know that the images from Mars are real.
No doubt.
Who here is from JPL? What do you guys do at JPL?
I do animations.
You faked it
Wait, I want to hear you. I want to hear you. I want to hear what you're saying. What did you say? What did you say you did? I didn't hear the last part of it.
He designs images of the website.
Really?
When we have issues like going to Mars, Jupiter, you see the animations on TV, like on CNN and stuff. I work on those. So it's good.
So that goes right back to.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you've seen the actual images. I don't know what resolution they are.
They look far more real than you got from Mars, no doubt.
The Mars lander has a stereo camera. You see the images in stereo, high definition television, a lot of resolution. And then across the panorama, you've seen in stereo.
Oh, so it is quite real then. So you're getting like 2K images at least? And with a panorama, it's bigger?
They're taking it in little patches and increased it together. But the reality that's gained from looking at it in stereo is unbelievable. It's just so much more. You can see depth into the picture. You can see how the terrain undulates in front of you.
But I see all those stitches too. I mean, can you like eliminate all those borders between the pictures?
That's one of the things we need to do.
And do you get the feeling, the feeling that David was talking about, the feeling of the coming off, the penguin coming off, do you get that feeling when you're looking at those? I mean, is it that kind of visceral excitement?
That's a more universal thing.
Yeah.
For us who we work every day.
And you retain that excitement or that.
Jeff did an animation flying over Mars for an IMAX movie called L5 First Seen in Space, and it's really exhilarating. You feel like you're on a ride. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Yeah, it's in 3D, and you're flying over Mars. Jeff banks the camera and stuff, and it's pretty interesting. It looks completely real clean.
You had it on your tape, a couple of shots of various terrains and stuff.
Right, that was for the Disney project in Orlando, right?
Yeah, very, I don't know
Well, it seems to me, when we're talking about content and visual images, and the way that I try to feel it as an animator is, film works for me when it has gravity and weight, and also resolution, which is what we're talking about here. And
when you say, Eric, just slow down.
Gravity and weight.
What does gravity and weight mean?
In other words, the polar bear going, you feel, you have a kinetic feel, connection with the visual image. The birds coming out of the tree, there's a feel for it. So to me, a successful visual image, and what I try to do is have that feeling of weight, of gravity, because there's no weight and gravity on the TV screen at all. It's just about timing, it's about how things evolve, and it gives this sort of feeling that you get. And so that is a way to have meaning. It's not associative to a story or anything like that, but it makes you feel like you sort of connect to it.
Do you think that becomes a problem if we're constantly bombarded with these images that have no content at all?
Well, that's the content.
The content is the...
Well, and that's not really true. I mean, yeah, if you get too much of anything, I guess it's not great.
Well, I think it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just turning out vacuous images. That's what we get paid to do.
It's really frustrating because these tools could be used to
yeah, but who's going
to as critical tools?
But who's going to pay us to use them as critical tools?
I don't know. You can work subversively. I don't know.
But let me tell you, we get $1 million to $1.5 million a minute to do that, and we don't make any money.
Yeah.
Rhythm and Hughes is not a high-profit corporation.
And in a sense, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Last year we lost money. This year we'll probably make 2% return. And, there's no investment banker or stock market that's going to put a penny into a company like Rhythm and Hughes because we don't make profits.
And you're inventing in the same, you're inventing your tools.
Well, that's actually one of the problems is it's so difficult to do. We really don't know how to do it when we start.
But
so there is
but that's really exciting as well. I mean,
it's exciting for all of us that do it.
Yeah.
We like doing this kind of work.
That's totally my reaction. What a great way to make a living.
Yeah.
That's my reaction. You get to have the fun doing that, and when I look at it, I realize I'm being totally manipulated. I can choose to see it or choose not to see it. I can choose to sit there and do it or not do it. If I watch TV, after an hour, I feel totally manipulated, and I go read a book. And sometimes I do it. Sometimes I watch TV, I talk on the phone, and read the paper at the same time. And I have all these I have actual bodily sensations going on that are not created by me, that are imposed on me from outside. I feel totally manipulated. I almost never go to films because I just feel totally manipulated. Almost no film is worth it. I don't want somebody else's feelings put in me. Hello, thank you. I mean, that's my reaction to the whole thing. But it's fun for the people who do it.
Right. But to go to Chip, to what you were saying, like, that it could be something else. Well, in a sense, the question of what it could be, in a sense, doesn't it almost lies in your hands. If you can imagine it, then maybe you can figure out a way to do it. Because my sense is, and I don't know, but my sense is that and it was struck off by something that you said the other day. It's like that this stuff, that this is an enormous amount of invention going on at the same time. That this is sort of the lip of the envelope. That it's not just, it's not something that you know how to do. So that it's, I mean, it's incredibly fascinating and it's incredibly powerful. But it does. There are questions. I mean, I guess
Questions about what?
Well, for me, there's questions about how else you can use it.
Well, it depends on your intentions.
Yeah.
If you use a tool such as this capability to make money for other people, the result will be X. If you use it to explore the nature of the tool, the result will be Y. So your intention is what determines the outcome. Doesn't matter how good a commercial is, it's a commercial. It can be a great commercial, but it's a commercial because the intention is to meet someone else's need, to sell a product, to make money, to pay the mortgage, to send your kid to school.
Well, it can also be an overdetermined
intention.
Yeah.
But also, aren't a lot of the masterpieces that we look and go to galleries to see, they were basically dukes and kings and kings' mission to establish their royalty, to establish who they were. So
But the intention was to create art.
It was a manipulation.
It was established. The reason they brought those artists on board was basically to find the kingdom.
Okay.
And I think this is we have just evolved this.
Yeah, that's good. That's, yeah.
These commercials will be seen as art in 20 years. We all know that they're selling something. Everything has underlying and multiple meanings, and we're never going to remove that from our society.
Well, I wasn't being critical of it, I was just, seemed to be just
No, I was
stating
just
out
trying to
this.
pose another way to see this.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a vehicle behind it, but it also is what it is.
That's true.
That would be a beautiful piece.
Yeah.
No, I agree, because it seems like it's something you were having a hard time getting past, commercials and paying money for. I mean, if you look at Renaissance art, not only paintings, but things that are, illustrations from the Bible and stuff like that, to have masses believe it. If you have a bunch of people who can't read and you want them to believe that something happened, then you pay an artist to paint that. So look, it's, here's the statue.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth in it. I mean, you're right. You're right.
So it's,
Yeah.
you can't condemn something because
I'm not condemning it. I'm not condemning it. I really am not. I'm voicing the questions that are coming up. I mean, I think it's fascinating and valuable. There's no doubt about it, and really important. It's just that I guess my feeling is that that everything happens so quickly, and we live in this time where there's no time to question anything, and it's just do. The pressure is on. Produce, survive. And there's a part of me that is always looking for, I want to have time to look at the implications. I wanted to be able to say, stop, well, how do we understand on a broader picture? I mean, sometimes when I'm driving down the freeway, I kind of take myself out the top of my head and I think, okay, here I am in 1997, and what does it look like? How do I get a picture of what's going on right now? Who am I in this culture? What does this culture look like? How can I have a greater understanding than just being inside this body, going from one place to another? And I think that's kind of what I'm trying for. And it's not always evident, and I'm not always on the money either, But I mean, I'm really interested in the questions that everybody else has about this too.
I think the frustration you're voicing is, I think my brother put it best when he said, if you took somebody from 1797 and put them in 1897, they would have no problem adjusting horses, houses, and stuff. But if you took somebody from 1897 and put them in 1997, they have no prayer of adjusting. And the curve of our change has just
I think that's true. I think it's
really fast in a really short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how things are going to be in 2097. We won't survive if we were to be placed in that society. So things are just accelerating faster and faster.
And I think that's really true, and I think that it's also combined for me with the fact that we live in the century of World War II, of the Holocaust, where there's this whole sense of being almost in something that where you could change, and that there wasn't this ability to change because of a lack of consciousness. At least that's part of what I carry in myself. So there's always this feeling of wanting to look, wanting to check in, to check on a bigger scale, and it's may not always be accurate or right or from the right. But I think that you're right. That's the fact that we are moving on at such a rapid pace. There's some sort of a desire to keep looking outside, which I don't know. What?
I think the faster society moves, there oftentimes people will have a stronger reaction against it. I often wonder, for instance, the rise in this sense of moving back to the good old days is a myth, because I don't think there really were the good old days. But people have fond memories because they're having a hard time coping with today. And I think a lot of times when people express this desire for content, they are expressing in a certain way a more fundamental dissatisfaction with the fact that a lot of these fantastic tools are used for more like educational or cultural purposes. But the problem is not necessarily because our society as a whole doesn't put the resources behind it.
Yeah, that's a really important point about it. Yeah.
Whereas, when I hear this, I have the desire too. I think almost all the artists that Hughes would like to, create that kind of material if we were paid for it. But there's no resources. There, NEA and educational stuff is just not funded in our society.
I wanted to make an analogy analogy with architecture for money, which is what I do for a living. Sometimes I can't believe that I get up every morning and that I do that after having gone to school here. It just astounds me. If anyone had ever said that I'd be doing this, you know, building for money is not architecture. Building for money is building for money. That's what I do every day. But I know architecture when I see it. I can do it in my mind. I can do it at home at night. But I can't do it during the day. During the day, I make buildings for money.
But what's...
But it is done during the day by a song.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
exactly
is.
what I was going to say.
By some, you're absolutely right. I'm just not one of them. I have no illusions about it. You see, I mean, some of the people that I work with say, oh, it's architecture. Bullshit. It's building for money. Because the intention is to make money. If the intention is to make architecture, then you make architecture. I'm going back to this point because I really believe that the outcome so much depends on the intention. The tools can be the same. The person can be the same. The paper can be the same. The pencil can be the same. But the intention with which you approach the paper, pencil, or computer, or whatever, makes all the difference.
But we're very complex beings, and we can have multiple intentions.
Of course. I mean, you can make a little bit of architecture. I'm not saying it's what
Well,
I
look
do
at
is
I mean
valueless.
look at Bilbao, for instance. I mean Frank Gehry is making architecture and making.
If Bilbao's not architecture, nothing is.
Yeah, but he's also making money.
Well, yes, but when he started out
I
doing
know,
that,
I know.
he didn't
Yeah,
make any money.
yeah.
He's one of the 1/10 of 1/1,000,000th of 1% of architects ever that lived or ever will live who gets to make money and make architecture. I could name 5 others, or maybe 20 in the world. Okay, so then what does everybody else do? Okay, some people make architecture and don't make money. I have a kid in college. I don't make architecture and I make money, and I know the difference. And it's distressing every day of my life, and yet I'm even grateful to be able to do it.
Sure.
And that's a reality that it's well, I have nothing else to say about it. That was probably enough.
Well, in some way, I want to go back to what Bob, what you were talking about education in society, because it seems to me that I mean, and it actually comes from, in a sense, from what you're saying, is like that somehow, okay, I guess somehow we have to, as a culture, as a society, we have to be able to force the issue with education so that there's more of there's more of this tooling maybe available in education. Or, I mean, I know that, I know you work real intensively with art education. I don't know exactly what you do. But it seems to me that and this is where am I making too big of a jump here? Am I? Okay. Okay, I don't either. Yeah, go.
What were we going to say here?
Okay, I'll say 2 things. One thing about what we started talking about in back here is that the tools are now much more available for people to make their own art. When I started, I was an independent artist. I had an AFI grant and an NAA grant, and was funded by the U.S. government to make films for like 4 years. And that's what I did. And they were not commercial at all. And then I animated, and then I got real frustrated with animation because I was just hand drawing it. And I saw my, as I died, looking at my reel, as you die and you see your life, I would see my reel, and it was going to be like 10 minutes long because it took so long to draw. So I just gave up animating. I said, forget it, this is ridiculous. So I stopped. And only did I start animating again like about 5 years ago when I could do it on some software packages that had been developed through just commercial means and so forth. And now it's even broader. So I think the idea of having non-commercial filmmaking is now much more available than ever because of certain things that have been developed with your studios and other studios, and just the technology. So I think that's now maybe possible more than it was even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I think you'll see a lot of that. You'll see a lot of bad work, like a tremendous amount of bad work, and some good work. But the fact is that people will be able to do it themselves, and I think it's much more effective and quick.
I'm craving your indulgence to try a little experiment.
Please.
And that might address something that I think is another unspoken issue. And let me just phrase it as a being brazen and saying, I resent the fact that you guys can make those amazing images and I can't. You know, that you guys can make magic stuff happen that fools me, and I can't make my own. And only Black & Decker will pay you to do it. And I wish I had enough money to get my fantasy out there. And so here's an experiment. And forgive me for if this gets weird. I haven't thought about it, but it's an opportunity to be my understanding of schizophrenia for just a moment. Okay, this is this television set for this moment, I absolutely and without any hesitation believe is my window, not their mirror. This is my window. I can see into, I don't know what I can see into, but I can see something I can't see on this earth. And the invitation is for everybody here, just for a moment, to think about what you might see looking through that as a window. Being 2 years old, being whatever age when you were able to last do this, or being however old you are right now, what you might see looking through that. If it was Esalen, we could do it for half an hour. And maybe you saw just a glimmer, just a corner of the room of an amazing architectural design that's been dancing away from you for a while, or a piece of CG that you wish you had the money to cut yourself, or the face of a beloved that died a few years ago, or whatever. I'm going to accelerate the experiment for a moment and see if we could say, after doing that for a while and coming into this room and sneaking in here at night and getting copies of the keys because it turns out this is the only place you can do it, and the politics that would arise and the fighting over that particular screen and committee members deciding who can use it for which period of time, and all the stuff that would come up, an amazing list that might come up of images that we would want to see through this. Oh my God, I want to see who did I date in high school, or you know, if. I'm sorry? Yeah, it is. I feel like there's just a little bit of a simmering of resentment that, God, we can almost do it. I want this now. And so, and forgive me, this is kind of heavy, but maybe there was a child that you lost, that you were trying to carry, whose face you could see. Or a way that your father used to look before he aged to the point where he couldn't just really get around a lot. And it's through that screen. And that my suggestion, I've been doing the exercise for a few minutes in my own, was that after a while I would have more and more educated and specific requests of the screen. The first thing looking through that screen would be a polar bear skiing, a Coke bottle turning into a butterfly, whatever, because it's high definition, it's totally real, it's great. But after a while I go, yeah, you saw the polar bear, you know this. You know, Batman and Robin did that last thing. So it's getting more specific. Now, all of a sudden, what's the context? What's the message? Okay, I looked through the screen. I've been coming every day. I've been driving up to SCI-Arc every day for the last year and looking through the window, and I saw my old girlfriend, my old boyfriend. I saw the polar bear. You know, and maybe a few. My projection would be that people would start the numbers would start to drop away. And there would be still some people that would keep coming and say, God, it's getting harder to work this. It's harder to see what Mars looks like. It takes some concentration. It takes me going back to some physics. It takes me going back. But I'm starting to get some images of Mars coming through. And then, you know, and then maybe some incredibly magic thing could happen. And I would feel very fortunate that it started to happen to me a few months ago from having been able to work with, you know, some of the guys you work with up in JPL. Is that when you went out of this room after taking some real effort to see what Mars looked like through our magic window here, I went outside and it sounds so stupid, but I looked up and I went, that's Mars. You know, this tiny speck of light. it just started to occur to me that I had been able to do that travel there by having this magic mirror, by having that suspension of disbelief, by having these guys help me to see through the imaging things. And I want to leave one last in this journey, bizarre journey that I went on myself, was that that I've been feeling better about doing that and being the child and looking at this from out of our conversation last night. Forgive me because Rob couldn't, he's still trying to figure out what's happening on Mars. But Rob Manning shared a story the other day. It was more kind of a confession that as the flight systems chief engineer for the Pathfinder mission, the one that held a lot of it together and kept the software running and didn't strangle people, or when they almost booted up new software 15 minutes before landing because they thought something was broken that wasn't broken. So he described, and this is, forgive me for sharing the story, Rob, but I think you should never tell me a story like this if you don't mean it to be. He described sneaking into the lab when they were building it, I can't remember the bay where what they call it, where they build the spacecraft itself. And he had to assure everybody that he wasn't nuts, that he was still the flight systems engineer with the right mind, that he was just going to lay underneath the spacecraft and stare at it for about an hour, and that they should go about their business. And, why? Well, he started to give a series of answers as to why, and I realized there was a bunch of answers, and they were getting more intimate and more personal and more spiritual. So I asked you this question: can engineers be creative? Can engineers be spiritual?
Of course.
Well, that's not a popular view. I mean, I see Rob Manning. He's a crazy man. Was he laying under staring at a spacecraft for an hour? And his answer was, the gist of it, and hopefully I can come back to some semblance of where we are, is that it meant everything to him, and something magical happened by him just letting himself drink in. And that it was a very much more refined, this is my projection onto what he said, than just our curiosity and our hunger to take in any kind of amazing image. That he was doing something on an amazingly Da Vincian level by drinking it in and observing and knowing every bolt. And one concrete thing that he got from it was when it was in trouble, when they almost tried to fix it at the last minute, he said he was able to visualize in his mind's eye, even though it was 210 million miles away, 120 million miles away, a hell of a long ways away. He knew what the bolts looked like. He knew what the titanium bolts looked like. And it was present in his mind. So that's a full circle for me of some of this and some of what we're starting to tap with these tools.
I'd like to ask John Hughes a question about creation and spirituality, or creation and transcendence. It's my assumption, right or wrong, I just operate on the assumption that creation, the act of creating, can lead to, not for everyone, and I don't know why that is, to a kind of transcendence. I know a lot of people have that experience, and I know a lot of people don't. But I'm personally very curious in why that should be. Is it genetic? Some people have the transcendence gene, some people don't. Some people have blue eyes, some people have green eyes. I'm serious. I think it may actually be that. Because people can create things and not transcend, and yet in the smallest act of creation, you can transcend in a moment. Your spirit just is you're suddenly somewhere else looking at yourself doing this fabulous thing, and so glad that you were ever born, and saying, thank you, universe, for letting me be. You know, that sort of humbling, transcendent, part of everything, kind of wonderful experience. So, see, because it's the act of creation that in my experience, allows the transcendence, or sets the stage for it. Seeing other people's creation can also allow that to happen. Sometimes you see other people's work and you transcend, listen to Bach, or see a painting, or see a person you love, whatever. So, but somehow I really think it has to do with creativity, with either observing your own creativity or doing it or seeing someone that did it. So I was curious. Are you fortunate enough to ever have that experience? Do you ever sort of transcend? I mean, do you ever? Because it is such a creative thing, and also that is in the act of creating. Because you see, it's in the creating that you can have the artistic experience. But depending on the product, it depends on whether the viewer transcends. I think. But anyway.
Yeah, for me, I'm an engineer, so I'm not the transcendent type, and it's certainly not anything that I create would create a transcendent experience for me. But I certainly get a lot of pleasure out of what our artists do, and yeah, that borders on transcendent experience. I mean, Betsy Asher Hall is one of our artists, so it's, you know, I'd probably rather deflect the question to her because she's more of an artist than I am.
It's really kind of an interesting thing. I paint in my free time with oils, and that's where I get my artistic gratification. However, I get a lot of pleasure from problem solving at work, which you would say is, you know, not an artistic process necessarily because it's very technical. On the other hand, it's problem solving, which when you figure it out.
Well, are we defining creativity as simply artistic production?
Well, yeah,
problem solving is very creative.
I guess I always think of it as much more technical than say, you know, coming up with an image. When I'm problem solving, it's usually because of limitations in the software or like you're saying, things haven't been made yet or whatever's going on. You're trying to figure out what's going wrong. And when you figure out what's going on and you fix it, but it's a definable thing. It's not like a subjective thing like if you're making a painting, whether it's good or bad is you know, nothing to do with it. Whereas when you're fixing a problem and you fix it, it's fixed, it's right, it's wrong. It's a very different thing. So I kind of have like two halves of it. I have this very technical half that gets a lot of pleasure out of, you know, solving these very definable problems, and then I go and I paint stuff, which is completely, you know, undefined. It's whatever I do, whatever I feel, the act of painting, I like the colors, I like, so.
Also, I feel in terms of transcendence or whatever, and this is in problem solving and this is making images and whatever, there's a point where you don't have any words for it. There's a sense you're looking at something and it just doesn't feel right, or there's a sense, you just sort of get this feeling of how to manipulate it or how to move it or how to change it. And that's, you know, there's nothing you can describe about what that is. It's just something you sort of feel internally. And that's what I feel like when I'm building images and shooting on the set or something like that. You just sort of feel like when things should be this way instead of that way. And I guess that's sort of a transcendent state. I mean, it's a sense that you can't really define it, you can't describe it, but you just sort of feel your way through situations. Does that make sense? I mean, in terms of, yeah, and that's, I guess, yeah, that's the act of creation, and that's where I feel the best. I mean, I feel like all of me or part of me, whatever, understands what's going on here, and I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just sort of reacting to that intuition.
And I think it even goes beyond that, getting back to what David just said, where this person laid under the spaceship.
Right.
I see that every day at Rhythm and Hues, where there are people who will touch the keyboard and things will work. It's because they understand the computer and they understand the tool and it works. Somebody else will sit down, they will do exactly the same thing and it won't work because they're fighting the tool, they're fighting the computer. But there are people that really feel it and it just works for them, and there are other people that don't and it doesn't work.
There's a weird electromagnetic thing that goes on, and I see it all the time. I see people who just look at a computer and it like erases, you know, and then other people that they just get it, and you can't really figure out why, but it's this electromagnetic phenomenon that I think could be really interestingly explored.
Yeah, it's a gene. It's like the transcendent gene. I have a sister.
It's more than that. I mean, it's really feeling the machine.
Right.
Sorry. It's just a tool. I mean, sincerely, I'm following this conversation, but I
not able to follow this surprise or this sort of, I don't know, versus something that is a tool like many others. I mean, the same conversation probably has been already in the past for the advent of photography, for the advent of cinema, probably for the advent of perspective too. So it's just the real problem is what the man wants, I think, in the sense that it's a tool and it's the man that used it. So I guess your fear regard what really men want. I mean, for example, we're talking about commercial movies and commercial overall, you know, and yeah, it's sad that so much art, I mean, skills are devoted to movies that probably are not as good, but why they are done is the real question, I think.
I think the answer to that, because form follows finance.
But the whole point regarding the computer graphic is just a tool. It's just a tool, and you know.
But it's more. But I mean, I think it's easy to say that. But I think it's a tool that is also an image, and that it has the potential to change us in our relationship with that tool.
But when there was the first, the erotic or the first photography, people were astonished because were the first time they could see something that was realistic. Now we are to the hyperrealistic.
But our culture has changed stratospherically during that time. So
the same thing is exactly the same thing. I mean, that's what I think, in the sense that at the time, you know, culture and society was moving slower, obviously, than now. But the man of the time has a different mind. Now we are faster. You know, we are more used to images. We have more education somehow. I mean, it's different.
But we're having the same conversation.
Exactly.
Which is maybe that's a need.
But I think the real point is not the tool. The point is who used it.
But I think it's both. I think it's like saying, well, am I looking at you or you're looking at me? There's this relationship going on, and I think there's a relationship with the tool as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
I want to ask a real pragmatic question. Does anybody know if we close the doors if the air conditioning goes on?
I don't think so. There's a thermostat.
Oh. Because it doesn't
there's
feel...
an engineer's
Plug it in. Turn the switch.
Let's first
on.
try to focus on the energy on. Or the
Try electricity before hitting.
Well, because I think the air conditioning's off. It's good. Right now, is it hot in here? Yeah. So I think if we close the doors, the air conditioning will go. Okay.
Let me ask about something, and without getting into without going to one of my extreme exercises again. I'm curious about our hunger for images. Is there anybody here that is bored with images, all images? That can say, I've seen enough images, I've been alive for...
Let me just point out something.
Yeah.
Mars Pathfinder, the original plan was no camera.
Oh, God, that's right.
Was what?
Can you believe that? On the original plan, the Mars Pathfinder lander and rover, there was no camera.
Whose idea was that?
Exercise.
What did it have?
It had scientific sensors.
Like sonar type?
Yeah, there's other non-imaging devices, scientific measurements. They added a camera, obviously.
Do you recall how the process took place? Why they added a camera?
No, but I mean, well, it's obviously, exactly, NASA's trying to market itself in the public.
Yeah.
And to me, one of the most remarkable things they decided to do was put the camera on mast 5'7" tall with two cameras that two organs are.
So they're replicating the form, human
Literally
form.
understanding on Mars.
It's literally what? Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Two eyes.
Yes.
Our two eyes on Mars.
Yeah.
And why? That's my question.
Exactly.
Why do we want our two eyes?
Isn't that one of the ways that we understand our own universe? I mean, what I'm saying is, if you were to show us images that were so foreign to what we understand already, we would see them only as gray noise. So the first thing you have to do is relate everything to the way in which we understand things now, because like you were talking about taking a person, from the 1897 or something like that, they couldn't get it. So I think it's very important, and I asked this question actually of the video artists, or at least your commercial, your artists. How far can you take us in these images before we lose our own world? So you always tie us into our own world. But how far can you start pushing us, and how far can each thing build upon the last before we're gone? They will no longer tie into images. Those were birds this time. What happens if there were things we've never seen before flying out there?
That can't happen.
And what would it take for you to bring us?
That'll never happen.
Because that's, where it gets interesting.
You can't conceive of anything in the world that you've never seen before. I mean, you could say, oh, there's a purple polka dotted dragon, right? I mean, but you do know, things with wings, and you do know what purple is and what polka dots are, and you can make these things together, but you can't conceive in your mind anything that you've never seen.
Dragons, you've never seen a dragon.
But you can put together,
But why not? But why say no? Why say no?
I say that you can't. I say
Yeah.
You can make something fly, you can make it swim, you can make it walk, but beyond those, is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm talking about that just in reality, that you can't conceive of anything that you haven't seen in some shape or form before.
What if you thought about people that can't see? How do they interact with the world? How do they interface? I work daily with people with disabilities, and we use computer technology and help them interface with the world in different ways. And we're all here because we're hungry for building images, whether we artistically or creatively or economically. But we deal with that all the way. One of the big problems with our world right now, it's so visual, and the GUI, the graphical user interface, is eliminating information coming into people that have that deprivation in their life. And they love to go to movies, they love to go to those kind of things. How do they gain that information? They've never seen it. How do Helen Keller, who was brilliant.
That's the question. That's the question that I wanted to bring up was, how do these images that are being created now, how are they changing our perception of ourselves and our perception of reality? Where you think about, say, people in Europe or whatever, before they had never seen, the landscape from like an aerial view. And as soon as they saw, the world from an aerial view, it totally changed the perception of, their world, how they react, how they relate to that. Now, I mean, in photography, we did the same thing, and now you have television, we did the same thing, Now you have these images, you have virtual reality, which is doing a similar thing. Now, how is these special effects that take us to other worlds and stuff like that, how is that changing our perception of reality?
Can I segue on that, or does anybody here feel different from something they've seen recently? Changed?
All the time.
What did you? Just one thing. What have you seen recently? What have you seen?
I saw a show on Street Magic. Did you guys see that? This guy levitated himself right off the ground. Did you see that? It was amazing. I mean, no wires, nothing. This guy stood there and he floated off the ground like 4 or 5 inches. For a few seconds, he came back down.
What happened to you when you really tried to?
Totally ruptured my perception of reality. It tore like a hole in it.
Has it recovered yet? Your perception of reality?
When I think about it, it still kind of makes my record skip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know. Yeah, I do. Does anybody else have an experience like that lately that makes your record skip? Seriously.
See, this is something that, I mean, it sounds trite. I was walking the dog last night and I saw the moon in the clouds, and for whatever reason, it was just really a great experience for me. It's okay, the moon's there all the time, and everybody sees it, and everybody, But for that moment, for whatever it was, the way the sky looked, the way the trees looked, the way the lighting was just like, wow.
That's because you're light.
It's just sat there and stared at it, and I was just like,
And you try to analyze it or whatever, or tell a group of people about it.
Well, I can't relate this because it's just, it's like, wow.
But it happened to you.
Yeah.
And you can attribute it to, at least it was triggered by looking up and you saw something.
Yeah, I saw moving clouds. I mean, it was something that was just hit me a certain way, and maybe somebody else who sees it, it doesn't hit them the same way. I mean, everybody perceives things differently. I think that goes back to, you talk about alternative worlds, alternative realities. Everybody wants an alternative reality, or thinks, maybe there's some other universe right next door, like an onion peel or whatever. Keep on going in. We each perceive things differently, so each of us have alternative realities if you want to define it that way. So the person next to you, I mean, I can't say what he's actually seeing or what he's hearing. We always say purple and we're pointing to color, and we'll all say, well, that's purple. But
if we were all with you on that walk, how many of us would have had?
Some might, but I don't know. I mean, I felt it with a real intensity. I felt it with intensity. Talk about going back to childhood of, walking when I was, 8 or 9 years old at night, and all of a sudden it was like the same thing. I'm alive, just that moment. And I'm sure people have that all the time, and it doesn't have to be triggered by, things that you see on TV, and it doesn't have to be, and then it can be. By the same token, it can be. It's just.
To me, whatever else we discuss, one of the things that I would want to throw into this is a sense of growing value and appreciation for those little special moments that are not so little. And that's one way of finding some meaning in this tremendous power.
You're right. You're absolutely right, David.
For transformation, and that it's going to sneak up on us. It's not always going to be. Sometimes you'll get them with the polar bear, and sometimes it'll be the image of the car that was with the Irish music. The penny whistle was just like getting my little hairs to stick on the back of my neck, and it's a Mazda. I mean, it's like. I had a Mazda experience. Well, of course, they're hoping that I'm going to say, I've got to get a Mazda because it has Irish music when I drive it, But I stole that moment from it.
That's a transcendent experience, and to me, like in creation or in perception, it's just the moment when the range of possibilities, all of a sudden it's like, in a breath, it's that much bigger. And as far as what you were saying about how can we create something that's like something we don't know, I think that people have been, and I hope I'm not taking the conversation in a weird place, but that people have been experimenting with this since the beginning of time with the use of any kind of, with the use of whatever will take them into an alternate state, and psychedelics or whatever the kind of drug or herb or medicinal substance might have induced in them, that this, for a lot of people's way of transcending what they know as what's real and seeing something that they've never seen before and experiencing things in a way that, or all of a sudden being taken to a place where you see what's real as in a completely different way, or it just becomes that much bigger. And I wonder if it's possible to desire, the desire is obviously there to see and to know something that we can't relate to what's physically here, what we can see with our eyes, but is it possible to create that and to understand that in a state that's sort of limited by the minds that we have, that's sort of in the state that it is?
What would be something that you could do to nurture that process?
Can you make that bigger statement?
Well, you said it was an if statement. What if we could, there was understanding and you could create more? What does anything occur to you that you would want that would help you do that? Okay, yeah. Some really good psychedelics or something like that. I mean,
there's another kind of.
But see, just like she said, she was walking and she saw the cloud. It's all a matter of the situation, circumstance, experience. But at the same time, she was looking at something with her 2 eyes, and she saw the clouds of the moon that we all know, and it was a very real experience. But it wasn't that real at the time. So.
Well, and you know where I'm going with this, and forgive me, I'll step out just for a moment, but I want to keep throwing in a certain perspective in the conversation. I'm hearing you at least saying enough to say, I'd like to have the power to invoke that. I'd like to have the power to understand it better, and at least you're on the road by saying, I want to find out. I want to ask a group of people about it, or make the point in front of a group of people that maybe somebody could give me some support about it.
Well, because I just feel like it can't be ignored.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, how many people have been, I mean, it's something that I think goes hand in hand with being human, and it's not away from an intellectual discussion, it's very much part of it.
It's very much, yeah.
So, I guess it's my question, because it's something that I think a lot of attention is being focused on evolution of culture in the direction of, or even this kind of subculture that's emerging, having to do with music and drugs and computers, virtual reality, I mean all of this, and even any kind of science fiction novel that you read that projects images in the realm of the world where moving back and forth between the virtual world and the real world, there's always heavy emphasis on drugs or use in taking people to another place, not in the physical state, but a normal physical state. I mean, any William Gibson or Nick Stevenson, anyone you read, there's always subtext of drug use, and I wonder why that is.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just when you're talking, it's like, I mean, maybe it's just the capacity to experience wonder, and the more that we experience wonder, that we are actually capable of experiencing wonder. And maybe it's that we need to be able, we have things to flip it off, to make it happen. I don't know. I mean, is that?
I think that is
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing you're describing, is that sense of wanting more experience. I think all of these are things where people are trying different ways to extend their experiences in life, to experience that which they may not in their normal day-to-day, which I think is the natural human curiosity. That's why we went and explored the planet.
This tool that everyone's talking about, a lot of people are paying a lot of attention on it as a tool to take us to that place. Because you can do it, because, or maybe you can, I don't know. It seems like everyone's wondering, does anyone know anything that you've seen, that's prevented using this tool or any other one?
I think that's why computer graphics are so popular right now, and also movies. I think that's why things like Batman. I mean, I think Batman visually was a really stunning film, but the content was awful. It's one of the worst ones I've ever seen. But the reason why I would go and see it again, why I would probably go and see Batman 4, is because I hunger for that experience of something new. And I want to go to some place I haven't been before. And movies or drugs or computer graphics or art or all these different media or are just different vehicles for new experience.
How do you draw the line between passive entertainment and interactive involvement in this sense of wonder? Both of
Creation.
Yes.
The act of creation.
Well, the act of creation, you talk about tools. The image that comes to mind is those activities as being very kinetic, that they're more verbs than nouns. In the sense it's not a static, fixed, if you're talking about problem solving. Well, that's one of 31 flavors of creative exploration. Another one just to throw out is how to pose what's the right question that one needs to be thinking about at a given point, which is a very different exercise than looking for an answer. I lived in eastern Kentucky for a few years during not the Mars, but the moon landing in '69, and was teaching minors kids back there. Nobody believed that happened. They thought it was done on some TV stage in Wyoming or Utah. And there was nothing I could do to explain that to them. And yet, why these kids are having this conversation with them, they're playing this Zen game of checkers that they call cops and robbers, which is the whole point is to get rid of your men as quick as possible. And so here's like a third world society that is not using the tools that are contemporary, but with the tools that they have are still exercising that power tool between their ears in a way that is exhilarating.
Well, that's what you're talking about, exercising your brain. And something that you said, Bob, that made me think about that is, okay, we hunger for images, and we hunger to sit there and say, entertain us, make me guess, make me, oh my God, you know. Well, what about, you know, making yourself perceive something? I mean, it's the whole thing about art, you know, you're supposed to look at something that's a chair and look at it in a different way than you've ever seen it before, you know, perceive it in a different way. And maybe, you know, these tools are letting us be lazy, so we don't have to go and make our own perception and see something and say, wow, that looks really cool. Because somebody else said, okay, this is going to look really cool, and then you just go, okay, that looks really cool. You know, and everybody agrees on it.
Your experience of walking your dog was probably such an activity of sartorial because you were outside, you were communing with this other living creature who you have your own vocabulary, how you the two of you talk with one another. And it was an active experience for both of you, as opposed to sitting in a room watching video fire burning on television.
But it's very addictive because it's a lot less effort. You know, I don't have to get up and walk my dog and go outside and deal with the elements. You just get handed stuff on the platter. You know, I mean, it's. You know.
On the other hand, computer graphics are very challenging to watch. I show, you know, somebody in my family computer graphics tape, they'll fall asleep. It's way too much effort to watch.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. It was really work. There was a place in looking at those reels where you really had to engage and be active.
It's not just the
Yeah, that's true.
It's so technical.
Yeah. And it's also highly kind of evolved perceptually in a way.
It is.
I mean, there was a part of me that wanted to kind of drop back and kick back my heels a couple times rather than kind of work my brain. So that's true.
We have private eyes and we have public eyes. And you conjured up an image of the human psyche like a potato. I mean, with all these different eyes, and when we see what is imposed on us and we see what we can project out as well. And it's that telescope that you're looking in both ways and looking at it sideways.
And they want to make somebody else see that. That's the other question. You know, what I saw last night, you know, is there the desire to communicate that, to make somebody else feel that wonder? Is that, you know, is that important to me or is that important to somebody else that's creating images? And that's the whole switch too, because it's not just that you feel wonder, it's that you can make them feel wonder too. And then, not that you need to be validated, but wow, you know, then you've got a connection.
But we do need to be validated. We do need the connection with the other, with each other. I mean, I think it's not.
Yes, I mean,
yeah.
You have to try to not, you know, need that too.
Sure, but I also think you have to be aware that we do need it. You know, I mean, it's both things. Wow. Yeah. Wonder, transcendence. Are you still here?
Maybe that's the real problem with the graphics and with the advertising is that we're being manipulated into a communal feeling which isn't genuine.
Well, it isn't genuine. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to.
No, it's because by intention, as she's talking about, the intention is to make you spend money. The intention is not to share something that they have that they love with me.
But I know I'm kind of coming around 180 degrees before I was before. So what's new? But in a sense, I mean, if we look at these tapes, I mean, these tapes were made for advertising agencies, right? And then we're not advertising agencies. We don't have $1 million to spend. So in a sense, we're able to kind of take the bath, to go in, and just play in that kind of play in that yard, play in that field, and not have to worry about being manipulated.
Maybe that's where the active participation occurs. Maybe the active participation is to understand that we are going there purposely to
and
enjoy
to be willing,
this,
enjoy
this as a piece of art, not to enjoy this as a piece of manipulation.
Or just to enjoy it as part of our experience.
Yes.
Yeah, because David, when you said that earlier, when you was talking about I can't remember which thing you said, but I realized that when I was looking at these two reels, I was consciously holding myself back. There was an unwillingness to kind of let it, to kind of to be part of it, to let myself connect with it. And I mean,
I'm curious,
yeah,
did anybody else feel like that? Did anybody else not let yourself go completely with it?
I think you couldn't let yourself go because you had to try to understand what was going on. And there were such rich images and just the ideas. I was really amazed that somebody could have these changes in from the just to take something, the real person becomes with a different head and becomes a fantasy figure, and all this. It really asked me to try to understand what was shown to me. So I couldn't really be passive and just let it go over me.
What happened to you when you? That's an
I
amazing
wanted
thing.
to see it, and I was amazed how people came up with these ideas and how visual it was and how fast it all moved. I wanted to slow it down so that I could see more, because I thought visually it was beautiful. I think it was art.
Now you've mentioned something that we haven't touched on. I haven't heard touched on tonight because of the situation that we have. But imagine that you have the remote control and you can play it back for your favorite image.
Yeah.
So you would pick out favorite images from that and maybe see those a few times.
Yeah, I thought some were really beautiful.
Yeah.
And just that the humans can come up with these creative ideas. I think it's beautiful.
Now children, once again, that I know, will take the Batman and Robin movie, or they'll take some, one of the Disney things, and play the same video. How many times?
Yes.
I mean, any parents will tell you how many times they've seen the scene from Little Mermaid, And so that's maybe another level of selecting something you need to do something with, you want to internalize deeper. And that there's something going on, something, who can speak for that child, what the purpose is, who can speak for you, why a few things touched you, and yet I'm still searching in all this for why we do this, why we seem to be drawn to images, and why we get angry when they're not what we're, there's passion. We've done everything but agree to stop looking at them.
Your description is very apt to Leni Riefenstahl, who have you ever here seen The Triumph of the Will, Leni Riefenstahl? She was the filmmaker who Hitler commissioned for Olympics in 1936. And that was Olympiad, and then the documenting the Nazi rallies in Nuremberg. But she was working with the technology not unlike computer people are, that they're holy fools, they're dupes, they're doing what, they're dancing to the piper's tune. She made some very beautiful images, but how can you look at those images disconnected from the context that they were created in? And from your description of watching this just brought that to mind. Really.
I agree with you. I really enjoyed what I saw, and I would like to see it again. But then came also the question, what else can you do with it?
Almost like a guilty pleasure of, I'm enjoying this, but
No, I kind of wanted more, because so much effort went into this, and so much creativity. And I just wanted something that's more spiritual and more transcendence, and something which took me even more to another place than this, because I knew it was advertising.
Did it actually have the power to do that?
I think it could at some places, yes.
Did you feel little stirrings, like the wand in your hand was actually?
Yeah, like you described this visual, how the air slides down the slide and all this.
Yeah.
I enjoy that, yeah, and it gives you physically, but there isn't much time to really follow up or get into it, because then comes already the next image. It's like when you read a book, you have time to think about a sentence and
Why isn't there more time? Why don't you allow her more time?
Well, I think that's the way it's presented. I mean, you have, like in a situation, if you're showing a sample reel to a bunch of advertising people, they'll give you 3 minutes at best. And they will look at it, and you've got to get it in 3 to 5 minutes. Otherwise, and they have to see everything, like you were saying, they want to see what's already been produced. They want to see their commercial already there. So that's why you have a lot of different images that are sort of like this, these fishing lures out there, you know, and it's like, hopefully one of them will strike. And I mean, that's the way that reel is cut. You could also cut it where you had longer sequences, and I'm sure you have other reels that are done other ways. I have reels that are, you know, that have an image maybe shown a couple of times, and then maybe go sort of behind the scenes, and you know, have a whole story about it. So it's really how you present it, and these reels are more just a lot of images in a quick amount of time. And I think also, just in terms of visual images for movies, you need a story. I mean, the story is what makes it have some content. The images themselves are the context, let's say, of the story, and they are the city, or they are, you know, showing you sort of what the surroundings are, and maybe make some story points, but they aren't the story themselves. In case of Batman, it really didn't have a story, so that's another issue. But in terms of, you know, visual effects traditionally can't tell a story. But in a 30-second commercial, they can. Because an image can say something, and in 30 seconds, an image will say it.
And you tell a story.
You can tell a story visually, just as an image. This turns into this, and that's the story.
To me, there's a big difference between the two of yours, and that yours was such short images, it was experiential for me, I didn't have time to intellectualize. Whereas yours was longer. And because of the longer span, I had more time to think and intellectualize and didn't just sit back and allow it flow with her. And I would imagine in advertising you must utilize those things, don't you, or do you? Keeping things short to stop intellectualization of it?
Can you produce just one thing that was so good and so impressive that it would be obvious that you could do anything they want? Instead of a montage, instead of showing every single thing?
Well, I think that's the next step.
Do you really? Talk about that. Talk about that.
Well, traditionally, in commercials, advertising, an advertising agency sells concepts. A concept of we're going to have a world that's black and white with a car, and it's called Far Field. And then what do we do with that? Okay, and then that's where it comes to filmmakers, and you have to make films out of concepts. That's what production companies, that's what directors do. So it's the concept over here, and then it's the actually taking the concept and giving it life. So somewhere between the two, you also